Does Big Brother exist? Of course he exists. The party exists. Big Brother is the embodiment of the party. Does he exist in the same way as I exist? You do not exist, said O'Brien. In Orwell's dystopian world of 1984, death is not the only ultimate indignity heaped upon those unfortunate enough to cross the thought police. For the party, death of their enemies is not enough, and any erroneous thought and mind must be fixed, and love for Big Brother elicited before the thought criminal is vaporized from history. This was the implication behind O'Brien's superficially nonsensical retort in the depths of the Ministry of Love. Winston himself is now an unperson, not only effectively dead, but soon to be lifted clean out of history itself. Since the party controls all records and through doublethink and Crime Stop, all the minds of party members, no trace of Winston will, in theory, be left. However, is this actually so? When questioning this, we're not considering whether every mind is sufficiently under control to abolish Winston from their memories. No, this may be a consideration for another talk. Today we settle if Winston was indeed vaporized in the book, and there is actually a definitive answer. Another key distinction to make here is not if Winston was eventually killed by the party, which is a separate issue. Death does not necessarily entail vaporization, as we shall see. Even Winston's death, something he secretly longs for by the end of the book, is not known by the final words of the book. Again, another interesting thing to consider in another talk. For an answer to our question today, we must move beyond the main body of the novel itself and into the appendix. This additional part of the book comes after the end of the main plot itself, but is in fact loosely tied to the world of the plot. The appendix appears to be a simple explanation of the world's language newspeak. However, it is also written within the context of the same world and from a future perspective. That it is written from some future where oldspeak still exists and newspeak is a historical curiosity has several implications. Today we look at a particular quote from the appendix. For context, the language was divided into 3 vocabularies, and this extract deals with the so-called B vocabulary, which covers political concepts and things as we shall see. Quote, "So far as it can be contrived, everything that had or might have political significance of any kind was fitted into the B vocabulary. The name of every organisation or body of people or doctrine or country or institution or public building was invariably cut down into the familiar shape, that is, a single easily pronounced word of the smallest number of syllables that would preserve the original derivation. In the Ministry of Truth, for example, the records department in which Winston Smith worked was called RecDep, the fiction department was called FigDep, the teleprograms department was called TeleDep, and so on. The line is almost throwaway, an example pulled up to illustrate a rather dry point about the language. However, the reference to Winston directly has huge significance. With his mention, we can assume that not only is newspeak an aspect of the past, recalled here by the writer, but the memory of Winston himself also endured into this future period, a future time where Big Brother, the Thought Police, and Ingsoc are no more. We know this as no such reminiscence of the language of newspeak would have been permitted in Winston's own time. Though we cannot be sure if Winston was finally shot by the party after his full submission at the novel's conclusion, we now know that at least the memory of Winston in some form endured to a time after the horror of his own time. This truth provides some consolation for us as readers and viewers that Winston in some small way did defeat the party. O'Brien himself explains how the party finds it intolerable to allow any who had gone astray to remain a memory in a brain or a note in a record. Winston Smith, always obsessed with the abolished past of his own time and finally condemned to the apparent oblivion that he himself condemned many others to through his own work, ironically remained a person in history, not an unperson. So there we have it, why Winston Smith was not vaporized. What do you think? Is the appendix a good basis for determining the fate of Winston's legacy? Tell us what you think in the comments, and remember, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength.